Why is celebrating ESEA Month so important?
Thank you so much for inviting me to speak. I think it's important for all sorts of reasons. And I think the main reason for me is to help people understand our community, to help people see our community, to allow our community to be visible. I think our community has sometimes, as you said, been called the hidden minority. We don't tend to put our hands up either to challenge or to celebrate ourselves. And that's partly to do with, I think, being a large immigrant population. It's partly to do with cultural markers around not wanting to make too much noise, feel somehow culturally wrong. But I think that within the last 3 or 4 years during the pandemic, it became really obvious, particularly to the younger generation in this country who are born here or have lived here for all their lives, really. They felt that the rise in anti-Asian racism was so strong and so violent and so upsetting to them. They really felt strongly that they should do something about it. And from that, all these green shoots appeared, which helped to coalesce the East and Southeast Asian community. And through that, through celebrating it, through being seen, has allowed us as a community to become much more cohesive and much more able to both celebrate ourselves and defend ourselves as a group.
What challenges do people representing the ESEA community sometimes encounter in the workplace? And what can organisations do to support the community?
That's such a great question, and I'm going to use two words that people may not have heard put together before. It's bamboo ceiling. So most people probably would have heard of the glass ceiling, which is something that some women, possibly many women, encounter during their working careers, depending what they do and where they work. The bamboo ceiling is similar, except it's a ceiling that it's an invisible ceiling that affects people with an EC heritage. So this is a combination of cultural differences. It's a combination of possibly accent discrimination. It's something that helps limit progression. And if you look at studies, most of which have been done in the States, but similar smaller studies have been done here in the UK, people of EC heritage tend to actually be overrepresented at school, at university, internships, graduate training schemes, and at the first levels of corporate. But when you look up all the way up to the C-suite, suddenly they've disappeared and they're underrepresented. So people be asking, why is this happening? And it is the bamboo ceiling. So something happens between the early stages in a corporate career and the C-suite. What is that? We think that it is possibly to do mainly with cultural misunderstandings. It's different ways of working. So to create understanding around that, i.e., people of EC heritage, gross generalization, tend to be people who will get their heads down quietly, work really, really hard. And if there's an issue, they'll try and work through it themselves. If there's an opportunity, they'll wait for somebody to say, we think that you're good enough to do this. Whereas possibly somebody with more of a Western mindset, whatever their heritage, might be more willing to put their hand up for a position. They might think, I'm not sure if I can do it, but I'm going to try really hard and I will. Or I don't think that's right. I'm going to challenge the boss because I've been taught to call things out. So it's a very different way of working. And Western workplace norms, rely on the values of assertiveness and some element of self-promotion, and that can conflict actually with the idea of group harmony, which is very, very powerful within East and Southeast Asian communities. So I think companies can do a huge amount around that in terms of creating understanding, whether it's through formal cultural competency or sustainable initiatives which allow an understanding and of different cultures and how they work to help promote those people that they thought were great enough to hire, great enough to really help progress, but somehow get stuck in the middle.
What would be your top tips on how to recognise and celebrate this month in organisations?
I love that because it's a really positive question and joyous question to be able to celebrate different cultures. obviously there's ESEA Heritage Month, and a lot of people, and there's also for our early spring, there's Lunar New Year, which a lot of East and Southeast Asian countries celebrate. And they tend to be the two times of the year that companies will just say, oh, we must do something to make sure that this community is celebrated and seen. It often involves foods, it often involves different festivities, and all of that is absolutely wonderful. But I think to make it really meaningful is to create, using those as kind of the starting point, is to create platforms and opportunities for people within their company that are sustainable, which lead to programs that last through the whole year, whether that's through community partnerships or creating cultural training awareness, and talking about different communication styles, maybe just investigating, different stereotypes and biases. We all have them, and it's not something to be ashamed about. Every human being has biases. Every human being will stereotype other people. It's part of being human. But what we can do is break down those biases and break down those stereotypes and humanize everybody. So I think the key thing would be celebrate, have festivities, but ensure that those are just a starting point for year-long or multi-year sustainable platforms and programs.